Happy Monday and welcome to your Mental Health Mini. This week's guests are Dr. Olivo and Dr. Seidler, and we are talking about how to thrive in college with your social life using DBT.
I see a lot of college students swing from paying attention to one thing they value and are like, okay, I can only be hardworking and do amazing academically, and like I'm just gonna have to sacrifice my social life, or I'm gonna prioritize my social life and just kind of accept that my academics aren't going to be, too stellar. And I think probably one of the main goals in college and when I'm working with college students is how do we find a balance between those two things? And how could you recognize when your emotion mind is essentially causing you to attend to one side and not pay attention to both of them, and to reach for more of like a synthesis or a balance where you really feel good about yourself, that you actually are attending to your values around building your community of friends at college and also doing what you're supposed to be doing there, which is learning and being a student.
And I think in college as well, I'm constantly describing the give fast skill. Okay, so what does that mean, right? But in short, it's a relationship skill that you can have, or you try to pay attention to the balance between how much you're giving to a friendship and how much you're holding fast to who you are. And I think that college has a ton of groupthink. You could even think about it's kind of reinforced or assumed that it should be that way. Sorority life, your team on a certain sports team, and there's so many hidden rules, right, that you kind of need to follow. So one of the things that can be really helpful is to pay attention to, just in general, how much are you giving to people, and also how much are you able to hold true to what you need. There are a lot of times where people feel like, okay, I got to stand up for myself when I'm talking to this person, or I'm in this friendship and I'm just going to tell them what I think. It's like, okay, so you can have a gentle manner, right? You can act interested in what the other person's saying. You can validate what they're going through. And what we mean by that is, can you understand the story of how they got there? It doesn't mean you have to agree, but there's probably a reason that they got to where they're at this point in life too. So those are some things I'm often trying to, especially I think people I'm talking to that are advocates, they're passionate, and you want to say, absolutely, you should do all those things. And there are ways to get people to hear you, and you want to have a bit of a balance. And then you have people who don't, I hate to say the term doormat, but they really are letting people cross boundaries that they shouldn't cross, or they're not going to that professor and asking for a different grade and just saying yes to everything. And so the fast skill would be much more about holding true to who you are as a person.
A lot of people think they have to be either or. And I think, yes, if I was at like a store or something and they told me something was $20 and then I go to ring it up and they're like, it's actually $95, maybe I'm going to use just fast because that person who works there, I don't need to maintain a positive relationship with. But when we're thinking about college, and whether it's a professor, a friend, whoever it is, we probably need to pay attention to both of those skills. And I think people mistake maintaining our self-respect as being aggressive or abrasive in terms of assertiveness skills. There's a way for you, here's a dialectic, to be gentle and assertive at the same time. And there's a way to maintain a relationship with someone and still draw a line in the sand. And it's all about how you do that, right? Can you validate their perspective? Can you be gentle with your language, not attack them, etc.?
I think college is also a time when friend groups can ebb and flow or shift altogether, and that's really normal. And so the give and fast skill ultimately is about how to maintain the relationships that you want and set boundaries in, or end the relationships that are no longer working for you. But there are times when I'm talking to some people and they'll kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. They'll say like, this friend, again, sort of hurt my feelings this one time, or is not somebody who can do X, Y, and Z for me. And that's when I said, like, let's pull out a little bit, zoom out, and let's think about friendship, and that no one friend is going to be all things to you, and that I have a friend who I can trust, like, with my life, literally, but she's not going to pay me back the $10 she owes me. I know for a fact that she's not, but I can really trust her in this one category, and I can kind of adapt or move around or accept that she's fallible just like I am in another category. And since we started our podcast, you'd be amazed how many people have been like, oh my gosh, my child who's a freshman is having such a hard time. It is the most consistent thing that we hear. So it's not necessarily advice, but it's about saying, this is what almost everyone is going through. And it's the time of your life when you're probably the most afraid to express it. Yeah. So there's a huge discrepancy there. So you are not alone. I have a niece who is just the most thriving person in the world. And I asked her at some point, what would you say to people who, maybe aren't struggling with mental health or have a hard time or are doing fine? What's the thing that you'd want me to know as I'm working with these people? And she said, freshman year was the loneliest time for me and every one of my friends. Yeah. This was not even someone who would have ostensibly said she struggled with mental health. Everybody is. You're not alone.
If you enjoyed this week's Mental Health Mini, you can listen to the full episode. It is episode 149, featuring Dr. Sarah Olivio and Dr. Liz Seidler, 2 clinical psychologists and hosts of the College is Fine, Everything is Fine podcast. A link to the full episode is in the show notes, and as always, make sure to leave a review, subscribe, share with a friend or family member, and follow at She Persisted podcast. Thanks for listening.